Question 1. Stakeholder feedback indicates a growing concern among undergraduate students regarding the availability and accessibility of mental health support services on campus. Some student groups are advocating for immediate, significant increases in funding for counseling services and the implementation of new, specialized programs. The university administration needs to determine the most effective and responsible way to address these concerns while considering the broader institutional context. Option A. Form a temporary committee composed solely of student representatives to design and implement new mental health programs without further institutional review or resource analysis. Option B. Prioritize addressing the feedback from the most vocal student organizations, assuming their concerns represent the majority and are the most critical to address first. Option C. Immediately allocate additional funds to counseling services based on the loudest student advocacy groups' demands to demonstrate responsiveness and address the perceived urgency of the issue. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the current state of mental health services, gather detailed feedback from students, faculty, and staff, analyze resource allocation, and project the costs and benefits of various proposed solutions before making any funding or programmatic decisions. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment to evaluate the current state of mental health services, gather detailed feedback from students, faculty, and staff, analyze resource allocation, and project the costs and benefits of various proposed solutions before making any funding or programmatic decisions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate needs and concerns of various stakeholders with the long-term strategic goals and ethical obligations of the university. The pressure to respond quickly to feedback, especially from influential groups, can lead to hasty decisions that may not be fully vetted or aligned with established policies or the university's mission. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed changes are equitable, sustainable, and uphold the integrity of the academic environment. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment. This method is professionally sound because it systematically evaluates the potential consequences of proposed changes across all relevant dimensions: academic, financial, operational, and ethical. It requires gathering data, consulting with affected parties, and analyzing potential risks and benefits. This aligns with principles of good governance and responsible decision-making, ensuring that actions are informed and justifiable. Specifically, within the context of university administration and adherence to best practices in institutional management, a thorough impact assessment is crucial for demonstrating due diligence and accountability to the university community and its governing bodies. It allows for proactive identification of potential issues and the development of mitigation strategies, thereby safeguarding the university's reputation and operational effectiveness. An incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate stakeholder demands without thorough analysis is professionally unacceptable. This failure stems from a lack of due diligence and a potential disregard for established university policies and procedures. Such an approach risks creating unintended negative consequences, such as alienating other stakeholder groups, incurring unforeseen costs, or undermining academic standards. It also fails to demonstrate a commitment to a fair and transparent decision-making process, which can erode trust within the university community. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or the loudest voices is also professionally unsound. This method is subjective and prone to bias, failing to capture the full spectrum of stakeholder perspectives or the objective realities of the situation. It can lead to decisions that are not data-driven or strategically aligned, potentially creating more problems than they solve. Ethically, it fails to serve the broader interests of the university community, which requires a balanced and objective consideration of all relevant factors. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem or the feedback received. Second, identify all relevant stakeholders and their perspectives. Third, gather objective data and information related to the issue. Fourth, conduct a thorough impact assessment, considering academic, financial, operational, and ethical implications. Fifth, develop potential solutions or responses based on the assessment. Sixth, consult with key stakeholders and relevant committees or leadership. Finally, make a well-informed decision, communicate it transparently, and establish mechanisms for monitoring its effectiveness. This systematic process ensures that decisions are robust, defensible, and aligned with the university's mission and values. Question 2. Stakeholder feedback indicates a growing concern among current students and recent alumni regarding the perceived lack of practical application in certain core curriculum courses. To address this, what is the most appropriate initial step for Adelphi University's academic leadership? Option A. Immediately revise all course syllabi to include mandatory internship components or project-based learning, without further investigation into the specific courses or departments most affected. Option B. Issue a public statement acknowledging the feedback and assuring stakeholders that the university is committed to academic excellence, without initiating any specific review or action plan. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of course syllabi and learning objectives across affected departments, gathering specific examples of how theoretical concepts are currently linked to real-world scenarios, and solicit further detailed feedback from student focus groups and alumni surveys to identify concrete areas for enhancement. Option D. Delegate the responsibility of addressing this feedback to individual faculty members, assuming they will independently incorporate more practical elements into their teaching. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of course syllabi and learning objectives across affected departments, gathering specific examples of how theoretical concepts are currently linked to real-world scenarios, and solicit further detailed feedback from student focus groups and alumni surveys to identify concrete areas for enhancement. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to respond constructively to external criticism. The core difficulty lies in discerning genuine areas for improvement from potentially biased or misinformed feedback, and then formulating a response that is both transparent and strategically sound. Careful judgment is required to avoid overreacting to isolated complaints or dismissing valid concerns. The correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based impact assessment. This entails gathering specific data on the nature and frequency of the issues raised, analyzing their root causes, and evaluating the potential consequences for student learning, faculty effectiveness, and institutional reputation. This approach is professionally sound because it aligns with principles of continuous improvement and data-driven decision-making, which are implicitly valued in academic governance. It allows for targeted interventions and resource allocation, ensuring that responses are proportionate and effective. Furthermore, it demonstrates a commitment to accountability and responsiveness to the university community, fostering trust and credibility. An incorrect approach would be to dismiss the feedback outright without investigation. This would be professionally unacceptable, as it signals a lack of engagement with stakeholders and a disregard for potential problems, potentially leading to the escalation of issues and damage to the university's reputation. It fails to uphold the ethical responsibility to address concerns raised by the academic community. Another incorrect approach would be to implement sweeping changes based solely on anecdotal evidence or the loudest voices. This is professionally unsound because it lacks a data-driven basis, risks unintended negative consequences, and may not address the actual underlying problems. It can lead to wasted resources and further stakeholder dissatisfaction. This approach fails to demonstrate due diligence and a commitment to evidence-based practice. A third incorrect approach would be to focus solely on public relations efforts to counter negative feedback without addressing the substance of the concern. This is professionally problematic as it prioritizes image over genuine improvement, potentially misleading stakeholders and undermining long-term trust. It neglects the ethical imperative to act with integrity and to genuinely seek to improve the institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, acknowledge and categorize the feedback. Second, gather relevant data and evidence to assess the validity and scope of the concerns. Third, analyze the potential impacts of the issues. Fourth, develop and evaluate potential solutions, considering their feasibility and effectiveness. And fifth, implement chosen solutions and monitor their outcome, communicating progress to stakeholders. This iterative process ensures that responses are informed, ethical, and contribute to the ongoing development of the institution. Question 3. The control framework reveals a potential weakness in the verification process for standardized test scores submitted by international applicants. Which of the following approaches best assesses the impact of this identified weakness? Option A. gathering feedback from admissions officers regarding their general concerns about international applicant credentials. Option B, evaluating the potential consequences of fraudulent or inaccurate test scores on the academic preparedness of admitted students and the university's academic standing. Option C, documenting the existence of the control weakness and noting that it needs to be addressed in the future. Option D, investigating the cost associated with implementing a more robust verification system for all international applicants. The correct answer is B, evaluating the potential consequences of fraudulent or inaccurate test scores on the academic preparedness of admitted students and the university's academic standing. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of how Adelphi University's internal control framework, as it pertains to admissions, designed to mitigate risks associated with the integrity of the applicant pool. The challenge lies in identifying the most effective method for assessing the impact of a potential weakness within this framework, which directly affects the university's reputation and the quality of its student body. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial observations and a robust impact assessment that considers both the likelihood and consequence of a control failure. The correct approach involves a systematic evaluation of the potential consequences of a control deficiency. This means not just identifying a weakness, but also analyzing what could happen if that weakness is exploited or fails. This aligns with best practices in risk management and internal control, which emphasize understanding the potential impact of control failures on objectives, such as maintaining academic integrity and admitting qualified students. Regulatory frameworks governing educational institutions, while not explicitly detailed here for this exam, generally expect institutions to have robust processes for ensuring the validity of admissions data and to proactively assess the risks associated with these processes. Ethically, this approach upholds the principle of fairness and ensures that admissions decisions are based on genuine qualifications. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the existence of a control weakness without considering its potential consequences fails to provide a meaningful impact assessment. This is a superficial analysis that does not inform decision-making regarding the prioritization of remediation efforts. It neglects the fundamental purpose of controls, which is to manage risks to an acceptable level. Another incorrect approach that focuses on the cost of implementing a new control without first understanding the potential impact of the existing weakness is premature. While cost is a factor in control implementation, it should be considered after the potential impact has been thoroughly assessed to ensure that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant risks. A third incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals, rather than a structured assessment, lacks the rigor required for a reliable impact analysis and can lead to biased conclusions. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with identifying potential control weaknesses. This is followed by a thorough impact assessment, which considers both the likelihood of a control failure and the severity of its consequences on the university's objectives. Based on this assessment, risks can be prioritized, and appropriate control activities or enhancements can be designed and implemented. This iterative process ensures that the control framework remains effective and aligned with the university's strategic goals. Question 4. The performance metrics show a slight decline in the graduation rate for the past 2 academic years. The university's strategic plan emphasizes enhancing student success and demonstrating strong outcomes to prospective applicants. What is the most appropriate approach to address this trend? Option A. Offer financial incentives to students nearing graduation to encourage them to complete their degrees within the current academic year, regardless of underlying academic preparedness. Option B. Implement a campaign to highlight other positive performance indicators, such as increased enrollment in popular programs, to offset the perception of declining student success. Option C. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of existing student support services, academic advising, and curriculum relevance to identify root causes of the decline and develop targeted interventions. Option D. Focus on revising the definition of graduation rate to include students who have completed a significant portion of their coursework, but not yet all requirements. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough impact assessment of existing student support services, academic advising, and curriculum relevance to identify root causes of the decline and develop targeted interventions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated goals for student success with the practical realities of resource allocation and the ethical obligation to provide accurate information to prospective students. The pressure to demonstrate positive outcomes can lead to a temptation to manipulate data or present it in a misleading way. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the university's reporting is both transparent and ethically sound, adhering to principles of academic integrity and responsible institutional representation. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers the multifaceted nature of student success beyond simple retention rates. This includes evaluating the effectiveness of various support programs, understanding the factors contributing to student outcomes, and identifying areas for improvement. This approach aligns with the ethical imperative to be truthful and transparent in reporting institutional performance, as expected by accrediting bodies and prospective students. It also reflects a commitment to continuous improvement, a core principle in higher education administration, an approach that focuses solely on increasing retention rates through superficial means, such as lowering academic standards or offering incentives that do not address underlying issues, would be ethically flawed. This would misrepresent the true academic environment and student experience at Adelphi, potentially misleading prospective students about the rigor and support they can expect. It also fails to address the root causes of student attrition, thus not genuinely improving student success. Another incorrect approach would be to selectively highlight only the most positive performance metrics while ignoring or downplaying areas of concern. This lack of transparency is ethically problematic, as it creates a distorted picture of the university's performance. Prospective students and stakeholders rely on accurate and complete information to make informed decisions. Finally, an approach that prioritizes short-term gains in performance metrics over long-term student development and institutional integrity is professionally unsound. This could involve cutting essential student support services to reallocate funds to initiatives that temporarily boost numbers, ultimately harming the student body and the university's reputation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to data integrity, ethical reporting, and a student-centered perspective. This means gathering comprehensive data, analyzing it critically to understand underlying causes, and using the findings to implement meaningful improvements that genuinely enhance student success. Transparency with all stakeholders, including prospective students, is paramount. Question 5. The evaluation methodology shows Adelphi University's commitment to a holistic review process for undergraduate admissions. Considering this, which of the following approaches best reflects the ethical and regulatory expectations for such a review, aiming to assess applicant potential while upholding fairness and diversity? Option A. A primary reliance on standardized test scores to ensure a consistent and objective measure of academic preparedness across all applicants. Option B. The establishment of specific quotas for various demographic groups to guarantee a diverse incoming class, regardless of individual applicant qualifications. Option C. A rapid review of application materials, prioritizing candidates who most closely match the perceived profile of a successful student based on superficial characteristics. Option D. A comprehensive assessment of academic records, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation to gauge overall potential and fit with the university's mission. The correct answer is D. A comprehensive assessment of academic records, extracurricular involvement, personal essays, and letters of recommendation to gauge overall potential and fit with the university's mission. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the admissions committee must balance the university's stated commitment to diversity with the need to maintain academic rigor and fairness in its evaluation process. The challenge lies in interpreting and applying the holistic review framework without introducing bias or compromising the integrity of the admission standards. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all aspects of an applicant's profile are considered equitably, aligning with Adelphi University's mission and any relevant accreditation or regulatory guidelines for higher education admissions. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of all application components, including academic achievements, extracurricular activities, personal essays, and recommendations, to assess an applicant's potential for success at Adelphi. This approach aligns with the principles of holistic admissions, which aim to identify well-rounded individuals who can contribute to the university community. Ethically, this method upholds fairness and equal opportunity by considering a wide range of factors beyond standardized test scores, or GPA. It also reflects a commitment to understanding the applicant as a whole person, acknowledging diverse backgrounds and experiences. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on standardized test scores would fail to uphold the university's commitment to holistic review and diversity. This narrow focus could inadvertently disadvantage applicants from less privileged backgrounds who may not have had access to extensive test preparation resources, thereby creating an inequitable admissions process. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes specific demographic quotas over individual merit would violate principles of equal opportunity and could lead to accusations of discrimination. Admissions decisions must be based on an applicant's qualifications and potential, not on predetermined demographic targets that could override a more qualified candidate. A third incorrect approach that relies heavily on subjective impressions without a structured framework for evaluation risks introducing personal biases. While holistic review involves subjective elements, it should be guided by clear criteria and a systematic process to ensure consistency and fairness across all applications. Without this structure, the evaluation becomes arbitrary and less defensible. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves 1. Understanding and adhering to the university's stated admissions philosophy and policies, e.g., holistic review. 2. Identifying and mitigating potential biases in the evaluation process. 3. Ensuring that all evaluation criteria are applied consistently and fairly to all applicants. 4. Documenting the rationale for admissions decisions to ensure transparency and accountability. 5. Seeking guidance from university leadership or relevant committees when complex ethical or policy questions arise. Question 6. Investigation of the admissions committee's responsibility when a faculty member advocates strongly for the admission of a candidate who falls below the typical academic thresholds, citing unique extenuating circumstances and potential future contributions. Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the candidate's application, seeking additional documentation to objectively assess the extenuating circumstances and potential contributions against Adelphi University's established admission criteria and policies. Option B. Inform the faculty member that the candidate does not meet the minimum requirements and close the discussion without further consideration of the extenuating circumstances. Option C. Grant immediate admission based on the faculty member's recommendation and their assessment of the candidate's potential, overriding standard review procedures. Option D. Postpone the decision indefinitely, indicating that the committee will revisit the application at a later date without a defined process for re-evaluation. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the candidate's application, seeking additional documentation to objectively assess the extenuating circumstances and potential contributions against Adelphi University's established admission criteria and policies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of academic admissions, while also considering the potential impact of their actions on the integrity of the university's processes. The pressure to admit a candidate who may not meet the standard criteria, especially when influenced by external factors, demands careful judgment and adherence to established guidelines. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of the candidate's qualifications against Adelphi University's stated admission standards. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with regulatory expectations for academic institutions. It prioritizes fairness, transparency, and the maintenance of academic rigor. By focusing on documented evidence and established criteria, this method ensures that admissions decisions are based on merit and suitability, thereby upholding the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. This aligns with the overarching principle of academic integrity, which is implicitly governed by university policies and accreditation standards that emphasize fair and equitable evaluation processes. An incorrect approach that bypasses the standard review process and relies solely on personal connections or perceived potential, without objective evidence, fails to adhere to established university policies. This could be seen as a violation of ethical conduct, potentially leading to accusations of favoritism or bias. Such an action undermines the fairness of the admissions process and could compromise the academic standards of the university. Another incorrect approach that involves fabricating or misrepresenting information to justify admission would constitute a serious ethical breach and potentially a violation of academic integrity regulations. This not only deceives the university, but also devalues the achievements of other qualified applicants. A further incorrect approach that involves deferring the decision without a clear, objective reason or a defined process for reevaluation, especially under pressure, can lead to prolonged uncertainty and may still result in an unfair outcome. It avoids a direct, principled decision and can be perceived as an attempt to sidestep responsibility. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a commitment to transparency, objectivity, and adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals should always prioritize evidence-based decision-making, seek clarification on policies when unsure, and be prepared to justify their actions based on established criteria and ethical principles. When faced with external pressure, it is crucial to remain grounded in professional responsibilities and to avoid compromising the integrity of the process. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential need to significantly restructure several academic departments to improve resource allocation and enhance interdisciplinary collaboration. Which approach to assessing the impact of these proposed changes best aligns with the principles of responsible academic governance and ethical stakeholder engagement, as expected within the Adelphi University framework? Option A. Rely on informal discussions with a few senior faculty members and administrators to gauge the general sentiment regarding the proposed changes. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically analyzes the potential effects on students, faculty, staff, and academic programs, incorporating both quantitative data and qualitative feedback from diverse stakeholder groups. Option C. Implement the restructuring based on the assumption that any perceived negative impacts will be minor and can be addressed reactively after the changes are in place. Option D. Prioritize an assessment focused primarily on the projected cost savings and revenue generation opportunities associated with departmental restructuring. Correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that systematically analyzes the potential effects on students, faculty, staff, and academic programs, incorporating both quantitative data and qualitative feedback from diverse stakeholder groups. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical obligations to its stakeholders, particularly students and faculty, in the context of a significant program change. The Adelphi University entrance exam, as a regulatory framework, emphasizes transparency, fairness, and adherence to established academic and administrative policies. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any impact assessment is comprehensive, unbiased, and leads to decisions that uphold the university's mission and values. The correct approach involves a thorough and systematic assessment of the potential consequences of the proposed program changes on all affected groups. This includes gathering diverse perspectives, analyzing both quantitative and qualitative data, and identifying potential risks and benefits. This approach aligns with the principles of good governance and ethical decision-making expected within an academic institution. Specifically, it reflects a commitment to due process, stakeholder engagement, and responsible resource allocation, all of which are implicitly or explicitly supported by the guidelines governing university operations and academic integrity. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on financial implications would fail to consider the educational impact on students, the potential disruption to faculty research and teaching, and the broader reputational consequences for Adelphi. This would violate ethical obligations to provide a quality education and support its academic community. Another incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a select few stakeholders would lack the rigor and objectivity necessary for sound decision-making. This could lead to biased conclusions and policies that do not serve the best interests of the university as a whole, potentially contravening principles of fairness and equity. An approach that prioritizes expediency over thoroughness risks overlooking critical issues, leading to unintended negative consequences, and a failure to meet the university's responsibilities to its stakeholders. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the problem or proposed change. This is followed by identifying all relevant stakeholders and their potential interests. Next, a comprehensive data gathering and analysis phase is undertaken, considering various impact dimensions: academic, financial, operational, ethical. Subsequently, potential solutions or courses of action are developed, and their respective impacts are evaluated against established criteria and ethical principles. Finally, a well-reasoned decision is made, communicated transparently, and followed by a plan for monitoring and evaluation. Question 8. Operational review demonstrates that an applicant to Adelphi University has submitted an entrance exam score that appears to be inconsistent with the expected format and verification procedures outlined in the university's admissions handbook. The applicant's submitted documentation includes a scanned copy of a score report that lacks a verifiable digital signature or official university seal, and the provided reference number does not yield a match in the university's internal database. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the submission of unverified and potentially fraudulent documentation. Option B. Initiate a formal inquiry with the applicant to request clarification and provide official documentation of their entrance exam score, while simultaneously attempting to verify the score through alternative official channels if available. Option C. Accept the applicant's submitted score at face value, assuming a minor administrative error on the part of the testing agency, and proceed with the application review. Option D. Grant the applicant provisional admission contingent upon their retaking the entrance exam, without further investigation into the discrepancy. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal inquiry with the applicant to request clarification and provide official documentation of their entrance exam score, while simultaneously attempting to verify the score through alternative official channels if available. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address potential policy violations in a fair and transparent manner. The admissions committee must navigate the complexities of evaluating an applicant's qualifications, while also ensuring adherence to Adelphi University's established entrance exam policies. The challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine errors in the application process and deliberate attempts to circumvent examination requirements, all within the bounds of university regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective review of the applicant's submission against Adelphi University's specific entrance exam guidelines. This means verifying the authenticity of all submitted materials, cross-referencing information with official records where possible, and assessing whether the applicant has met all stated requirements for the entrance exam. This approach is ethically sound and professionally responsible because it upholds the principles of fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. It aligns with the university's commitment to maintaining the integrity of its admissions process by ensuring that all candidates are evaluated based on the same set of criteria, and that any discrepancies are addressed through established procedures, not arbitrary decisions. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the application based on the initial discrepancy without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of an unintentional error and could lead to an unfair outcome for the applicant. It also bypasses the university's established protocols for handling application irregularities, potentially undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Another incorrect approach would be to grant the applicant an exception to the entrance exam requirements without a clear and documented justification that aligns with university policy. This could set a precedent for future applicants, creating an inconsistent and potentially biased admissions process. It also fails to uphold the principle of equal treatment for all candidates. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on the applicant's self-reporting of the discrepancy without independent verification. While an applicant's statement is important, the university has a responsibility to ensure the accuracy of information used in admissions decisions. This approach risks accepting inaccurate information and compromising the integrity of the admissions review. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a systematic approach. First, clearly identify the discrepancy and the relevant university policy. Second, gather all necessary information, including the applicant's submission and any supporting documentation. Third, conduct an objective review to determine if the discrepancy constitutes a policy violation and whether it was intentional or unintentional. Fourth, consult university guidelines for handling such situations, and if necessary, seek guidance from the appropriate university office or committee. Finally, make a decision based on the evidence and in accordance with university policy, ensuring transparency and fairness throughout the process. Question 9. When evaluating an applicant's potential for admission to Adelphi University, which approach best balances academic merit, holistic assessment, and adherence to institutional policies and ethical considerations? Option A. A comprehensive review of all submitted application materials, including essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities, in conjunction with standardized test scores and academic transcripts. Option B. An admissions process that primarily weighs standardized test scores above all other application components. Option C. An admissions process that relies heavily on personal interviews and subjective impressions of the applicant's personality. Option D. An admissions process that deviates from established university admissions policies based on the perceived potential of an applicant. The correct answer is A. A comprehensive review of all submitted application materials, including essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities, in conjunction with standardized test scores and academic transcripts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Adelphi University, as an educational institution, is subject to various regulations concerning student admissions, data privacy, and fair treatment. Admissions committee must navigate these requirements while making decisions that are both academically sound and legally compliant. The challenge lies in balancing the university's mission with its legal obligations and ethical responsibilities. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of all submitted application materials, including essays, recommendations, and extracurricular activities, in conjunction with standardized test scores and academic transcripts. This holistic review ensures that the committee considers a wide range of factors that contribute to a student's potential success at Adelphi, aligning with the university's commitment to admitting a diverse and capable student body. This approach is ethically sound as it promotes fairness and equal opportunity, and it is regulatorily compliant by adhering to principles of non-discrimination and merit-based evaluation, as generally expected of educational institutions under U.S. federal and state laws governing higher education. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on standardized test scores would be professionally challenging and potentially ethically and regulatorily problematic. Such an approach could inadvertently discriminate against applicants from less privileged background who may not have had access to expensive test preparation resources, thus failing to uphold principles of equal opportunity. It also fails to capture the full spectrum of a student's abilities and potential, which is a core tenet of responsible admissions practices. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes anecdotal evidence or personal biases over objective criteria would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Admissions decisions must be based on established criteria and evidence, not on subjective impressions or personal preferences, to ensure fairness and prevent discrimination. This would violate the principles of due process and equal protection that are fundamental to educational institutions. A third incorrect approach that disregards the university's stated admissions, policies, and guidelines would be a direct violation of internal governance and potentially external regulations. Admissions committees are bound by the policies they are established to uphold, and deviating from these policies without proper justification or amendment undermines the integrity of the admissions process and could lead to legal challenges. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the university's mission, admissions policies, and relevant legal and ethical frameworks. Professionals should prioritize a holistic and objective evaluation of applicants, ensuring that all decisions are well documented, consistent, and defensible. When in doubt, seeking guidance from legal counsel or senior university administration is crucial to ensure compliance and ethical conduct. Question 10. Governance review demonstrates that Adelphi University is facing pressure to increase enrollment numbers significantly over the next 3 academic years to meet strategic financial goals. The admissions committee is considering proposals to adjust admission criteria and streamline the application review process to accommodate a larger applicant pool and expedite decisions. Which of the following approaches best addresses the potential impact of these changes on the integrity and fairness of the admissions process? Option A. Prioritize meeting enrollment targets by relaxing certain admission criteria and focusing on speed of processing applications to handle the increased volume. Option B. Rely on the experience of admissions officers to make necessary adjustments to criteria based on their professional judgment to manage the increased applicant flow. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of proposed changes on academic standards, fairness of evaluation, and the overall quality of the incoming student body, developing mitigation strategies to maintain rigor. Option D. Implement process efficiencies in application review, such as reducing the number of required essays or standardized test score thresholds, to expedite admissions decisions. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of proposed changes on academic standards, fairness of evaluation, and the overall quality of the incoming student body, developing mitigation strategies to maintain rigor. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a university's strategic growth objectives and the ethical imperative to ensure the integrity of its admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can inadvertently lead to a relaxation of standards, potentially compromising the academic merit of incoming students and the reputation of Adelphi University. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional aspirations with the fundamental principles of fairness and academic rigor. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent assessment of the impact of proposed changes on the admissions process, focusing on maintaining academic standards and ensuring equitable treatment of all applicants. This aligns with the ethical obligations of educational institutions to uphold academic integrity and provide a fair evaluation process. Specifically, it requires a thorough review of admission criteria, development of clear and objective evaluation metrics, and the establishment of robust oversight mechanisms to prevent bias or undue influence. This approach prioritizes the long-term academic health and reputation of the university over short-term enrollment gains. An approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets without a corresponding rigorous review of admission standards fails to uphold the ethical duty to maintain academic integrity. This could lead to the admission of unqualified students, diluting the academic environment and potentially harming the university's accreditation and standing. An approach that focuses solely on streamlining the admissions process for efficiency, without considering the impact on the quality of admissions, risks overlooking critical evaluation steps. This could result in a less thorough assessment of applicants, potentially admitting individuals who do not meet the university's academic expectations. An approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or informal adjustments to admissions criteria, rather than a systematic and data-driven impact assessment, introduces subjectivity and the potential for bias. This undermines the principle of fairness and can lead to inconsistent and inequitable admissions decisions. Professionals in university administration should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core objectives and potential conflicts. This is followed by a comprehensive impact assessment that considers all relevant stakeholders and potential consequences, with a strong emphasis on ethical considerations and regulatory compliance. Finally, decisions should be based on evidence, transparency, and a commitment to the long-term academic mission of the institution. Question 11. Analysis of the admissions committee's responsibility when reviewing an applicant who expresses strong enthusiasm for Adelphi University, but whose initial academic profile presents some concerns, requiring a decision that balances institutional standards with the potential of the candidate. Option A. Focus primarily on the applicant's extracurricular achievements, assuming these demonstrate a strong work ethic and leadership potential that can compensate for any academic shortcomings. Option B. Prioritize the applicant's stated passion for Adelphi and their potential contributions to campus life, potentially overlooking minor academic deficiencies to ensure enrollment of an enthusiastic student. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire application, including academic transcripts, standardized test scores, essays, and letters of recommendation, while also considering any provided explanations for academic discrepancies, to make a holistic and informed decision. Option D. Make a decision based on the applicant's perceived social connections or potential future alumni donations, rather than their academic qualifications and overall suitability for Adelphi's programs. The correct answer is C. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's entire application, including academic transcripts, standardized test scores, essays, and letters of recommendation, while also considering any provided explanations for academic discrepancies to make a holistic and informed decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair evaluation. The admissions committee must balance the need to assess a candidate's potential with the imperative to uphold the standards of Adelphi University. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any decision is based on a thorough and unbiased review of all available information, adhering strictly to Adelphi's established admissions policies and ethical guidelines. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of the applicant's academic record, standardized test scores, personal essays, and letters of recommendation, while also considering any extenuating circumstances that may have impacted their performance. This approach aligns with Adelphi University's commitment to a holistic review process, which aims to identify candidates who demonstrate not only academic aptitude, but also the potential to contribute positively to the university community. Ethically, this approach upholds fairness and equity by giving each applicant a thorough and individualized assessment, preventing bias and ensuring that decisions are based on merit and potential, not on external pressures or incomplete information. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the applicant's expressed desire to attend Adelphi, without a thorough review of their qualifications, would be ethically unsound and professionally negligent. This would violate the principle of meritocracy and could lead to the admission of underqualified students, thereby undermining the academic reputation of Adelphi. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the applicant's perceived fit based on superficial criteria, such as extracurricular activities that are not directly related to academic achievement or potential, would also be professionally unacceptable. This approach risks introducing bias and overlooking candidates who may possess strong academic potential but lack certain preferred extracurriculars. It fails to adhere to Adelphi's stated admissions criteria and could lead to discriminatory practices. A third incorrect approach that involves making a decision based on anecdotal evidence or hearsay, without verifying the information through official channels or direct communication with the applicant, is professionally irresponsible. This violates the principle of due diligence and could result in an unfair or inaccurate assessment of the applicant's qualifications. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured and objective evaluation framework. This framework should include 1. Clearly defined admission criteria. 2. A multifaceted review process that considers all aspects of an applicant's profile. 3. A commitment to fairness and impartiality. And 4. Adherence to all university policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals should always seek to gather complete and accurate information, avoid personal biases, and ensure that decisions are justifiable and transparent. Question 12. Quality control measures reveal a significant discrepancy between an applicant's submitted standardized test scores and their high school academic record, raising concerns about potential irregularities in the entrance exam process for Adelphi University. The applicant otherwise presents a strong academic profile and compelling personal statement. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee to take? Option A. Overlook the discrepancy given the applicant's otherwise strong academic profile and compelling personal statement, assuming it may be a minor administrative error. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's submitted materials, consult Adelphi University's entrance exam regulations, and provide the applicant with an opportunity to address the discrepancy before making a final admissions decision. Option C. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to the detected discrepancy, prioritizing the integrity of the entrance exam process above all else. Option D. Forward the applicant's file to the Dean of Admissions for an immediate decision without further investigation or consultation with the applicant. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of the applicant's submitted materials, consult Adelphi University's entrance exam regulations, and provide the applicant with an opportunity to address the discrepancy before making a final admissions decision. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to address potential policy violations in a fair and transparent manner. The admissions committee must navigate the complexities of assessing an applicant's qualifications while adhering to Adelphi University's established entrance exam regulations and ethical guidelines. The pressure to admit qualified students must not override the imperative to uphold the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of the applicant's submitted materials and any discrepancies identified by quality control. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with best practices in university admissions. It prioritizes due process for the applicant, ensuring that any decision is based on a comprehensive understanding of the facts and adherence to university policy. Specifically, Adelphi University's entrance exam guidelines likely mandate a process for investigating potential irregularities, which would include gathering evidence, allowing the applicant an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on established criteria. This methodical process upholds academic integrity and fairness. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the applicant's perceived potential without addressing the quality control findings would be professionally unacceptable. This fails to uphold the university's stated policies and could set a precedent for overlooking irregularities, thereby undermining the credibility of the admissions process. Ethically, it would be a disservice to other applicants who followed the rules. Another incorrect approach, which involves immediate rejection without any further investigation or opportunity for the applicant to explain the discrepancy, is also professionally unsound. This bypasses due process and could lead to an unfair outcome if the discrepancy was due to an administrative error or misunderstanding. It violates the principle of fairness and could expose the university to challenges. A third incorrect approach, which involves overlooking the discrepancy due to the applicant's otherwise strong profile, is ethically problematic. This prioritizes expediency or perceived desirability over adherence to established procedures and fairness. It suggests a double standard and erodes trust in the admission system. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the quality control finding. 2. Initiate an internal review to understand the nature and extent of the discrepancy. 3. Consult relevant university policies and guidelines pertaining to entrance exam integrity and admissions procedures. 4. If necessary, gather further information or clarification from the applicant, providing them with a clear understanding of the issue and an opportunity to respond. 5. Make a decision based on the evidence, university policies, and ethical considerations, ensuring fairness and consistency. 6. Document the decision-making process and the rationale behind the final outcome. Question 13. Process analysis reveals that Adelphi University's admissions committee is seeking to refine its evaluation of incoming students to better identify individuals who will not only succeed academically, but also contribute meaningfully to the university's vibrant community and uphold its core values. Which of the following approaches best aligns with a comprehensive and equitable assessment of a candidate's potential fit for Adelphi? Option A. Prioritizing candidates based on their perceived social standing and financial capacity. Option B. Focusing exclusively on a candidate's declared major without considering their broader interests or potential for interdisciplinary engagement. Option C. A comprehensive review of all application components, including essays, extracurricular involvement, letters of recommendation, and any supplemental materials, to assess character, leadership potential, and alignment with university mission. Option D. Solely relying on standardized test scores as the primary determinant for admission decisions. The correct answer is C. A comprehensive review of all application components, including essays, extracurricular involvement, letters of recommendation, and any supplemental materials, to assess character, leadership potential, and alignment with university mission. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of how Adelphi University's admissions process, as governed by its internal policies and potentially broader educational accreditation standards, evaluates the holistic fit of a candidate beyond mere academic metrics. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate method for Adelphi to assess a candidate's potential contribution to the university community and their alignment with its mission. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial assessments and those that genuinely probe for the qualities Adelphi seeks. The correct approach involves Adelphi's admissions committee conducting a comprehensive review of all submitted application materials, including essays, extracurricular activities, letters of recommendation, and any supplemental information, to gauge a candidate's character, leadership potential, and alignment with the university's values. This approach is justified by the implicit regulatory framework of university admissions, which emphasizes fairness, equity, and the selection of students who will thrive academically and contribute positively to the campus environment. Admissions policies, often guided by accreditation standards and best practices in higher education, mandate a holistic evaluation to ensure a diverse and capable student body. This method allows for the identification of nuanced strengths and potential that might not be evident through standardized testing alone. An incorrect approach would be to solely rely on standardized test scores as the primary determinant of admission. This fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of a successful student and can lead to the exclusion of highly capable individuals who may not perform optimally under test conditions or whose strengths lie in areas not measured by such tests. This approach risks violating principles of equitable evaluation and may not align with Adelphi's stated or implied mission to foster a diverse and well-rounded student body. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize a candidate's perceived social status or financial background over their academic and personal qualifications. This is ethically unsound and can lead to discriminatory practices, undermining the principle of merit-based admissions. Such an approach would likely contravene university policies and potentially broader anti-discrimination laws governing educational institutions. A third incorrect approach would be to focus exclusively on a candidate's intended major without considering their broader interests, adaptability, and potential for growth across different academic disciplines. While a declared major is important, a rigid focus on it can overlook candidates who may discover new passions or whose interdisciplinary interests would enrich the university community. This approach limits the potential for intellectual exploration and may not align with a university's goal of developing well-rounded individuals. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the institution's mission, values, and admissions criteria. This involves developing and adhering to a rubric for evaluating applications that emphasizes a holistic review. Regular training on best practices in admissions, ethical considerations, and understanding of relevant university policies is crucial. Furthermore, a commitment to continuous improvement and a willingness to adapt evaluation methods based on outcomes and feedback are essential for maintaining a fair and effective admissions process. Question 14. Research into Adelphi University's strategic plan and mission statement reveals a stated commitment to fostering a diverse and inclusive learning environment and promoting interdisciplinary collaboration. Considering these institutional priorities, how should an applicant best frame their understanding of Adelphi's admissions process and their own qualifications for admission? Option A. By analyzing how their unique background, experiences, and academic interests align with Adelphi's stated goals of diversity, inclusion, and interdisciplinary study, and how they can contribute to these objectives. Option B. By emphasizing their personal career aspirations and how Adelphi's programs can best serve their individual professional development, regardless of broader institutional goals. Option C. By focusing on how their academic achievements and standardized test scores meet or exceed Adelphi's published minimum requirements, demonstrating their academic preparedness. Option D. By assuming that Adelphi's admissions are primarily driven by the need to fill specific academic departments with the highest scoring candidates to maintain rankings. The correct answer is C. By focusing on how their academic achievements and standardized test scores meet or exceed Adelphi's published minimum requirements, demonstrating their academic preparedness. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of how a university's admissions policies are shaped by external factors and internal strategic goals, rather than just academic merit alone. Admissions decisions are complex, involving a balance between attracting diverse talent, meeting enrollment targets, and aligning with the university's mission and vision. A deep understanding of this interplay is crucial for prospective students to articulate their fit and potential contributions. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of how Adelphi University's stated mission, its current strategic priorities, such as fostering interdisciplinary studies or community engagement, and its commitment to diversity and inclusion might influence its admissions criteria and the weight given to various aspects of an applicant's profile. This approach is correct because it demonstrates an applicant's ability to think critically about the institution's context and how their own aspirations align with the university's broader objectives. It shows foresight and a genuine interest in contributing to the Adelphi community beyond mere academic achievement. This aligns with the ethical expectation that applicants present themselves authentically and demonstrate a thoughtful understanding of the institution they wish to join. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on a narrow interpretation of academic requirements, such as GPA or standardized test scores, without considering the broader institutional context. This fails to acknowledge that admissions are holistic and influenced by strategic institutional goals. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that admissions are purely meritocratic and unaffected by external factors like the university's financial health or its desire to attract specific types of students. This overlooks the reality of university administration and strategic planning. Finally, an approach that prioritizes personal ambition without demonstrating how that ambition serves or aligns with Adelphi's mission would be incomplete, as it fails to show a reciprocal relationship between the applicant and the university. Professionals making decisions in similar contexts should employ a framework that involves 1. Understanding the stated mission and values of the institution. 2. Researching current strategic initiatives and priorities. 3. Analyzing how these factors might translate into specific admissions considerations. 4. Articulating how their own profile and goals align with these institutional elements, demonstrating a potential for mutual benefit and contribution. Question 15. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential need to access applicant data to clarify discrepancies in submitted academic records for a specific Adelphi University entrance exam applicant. Which of the following represents the most appropriate and compliant course of action? Option A. Attempt to find publicly available information or unofficial records that might explain the discrepancies. Option B. Consult with the Adelphi University Admissions Office or the designated data privacy officer to determine the authorized procedure for obtaining clarification. Option C. Directly contact the applicant's previous educational institution to request clarification on the discrepancies. Option D. Ask colleagues in other departments who might have had prior interaction with the applicant for insights into the discrepancies. The correct answer is C. Directly contact the applicant's previous educational institution to request clarification on the discrepancies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to balance the immediate need for information with the ethical and regulatory obligations to protect sensitive data. The Adelphi University entrance exam context implies a focus on academic integrity and responsible data handling within an educational institution. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any information gathering adheres to established policies and privacy considerations. The correct approach involves a structured and authorized process for obtaining necessary information. This means consulting with the appropriate university department or designated personnel who are responsible for managing student data and admissions processes. This approach upholds the principle of least privilege and ensures that data access is granted only to those with a legitimate need and proper authorization, aligning with university policies and any applicable privacy regulations governing educational institutions. An incorrect approach would be to bypass official channels and attempt to access information directly without authorization. This could involve trying to gain unauthorized access to student records or internal university systems. Such actions would represent a significant breach of privacy, violate university policy regarding data security and access, and potentially contravene ethical standards for academic professionals. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on informal or unverified sources of information. This might include seeking information from colleagues who are not authorized to share it, or using publicly available but potentially incomplete or inaccurate data. This method fails to ensure the accuracy and confidentiality of information, undermining the integrity of the admissions process, and potentially leading to misjudgments based on unreliable data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of university policies and procedures related to data access and confidentiality. When faced with a need for information, professionals should first identify the specific data required and the legitimate purpose for its use. They should then determine the authorized channels for obtaining this information which typically involves consulting with supervisors, relevant departments, e.g., admissions, IT, legal, or designated data protection officers. If unsure about the proper procedure, seeking clarification from these authoritative sources is paramount. This systematic approach ensures compliance with regulations and ethical standards, protecting both the institution and individuals. Question 16. Comparative studies suggest that when evaluating the impact of university programs on student success and future contributions, a comprehensive approach is most effective. Considering the rigorous standards implied by university entrance examinations, which of the following assessment strategies would best align with the principles of thorough impact evaluation for Adelphi University? Option A. A methodology that triangulates data from student academic performance metrics, post-graduation employment rates in relevant fields, and alumni career progression, alongside qualitative feedback on skill development and preparedness. Option B. An evaluation framework centered on gathering faculty perceptions of program strengths and weaknesses, with an emphasis on their research output. Option C. A process that quantifies the number of research publications and grants secured by faculty members as the primary indicator of program success. Option D. A system that primarily collects student feedback on their overall satisfaction with the university experience and perceived learning gains. The correct answer is A. A methodology that triangulates data from student academic performance metrics, post-graduation employment rates in relevant fields, and alumni career progression, alongside qualitative feedback on skill development and preparedness. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to critically evaluate the effectiveness of different approaches to assessing the impact of a university's programs on student outcomes, specifically within the context of Adelphi University's entrance exam requirements. The challenge lies in identifying the approach that most accurately and ethically aligns with the principles of rigorous academic assessment and institutional accountability, as implied by the need for a comprehensive entrance examination. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between superficial or potentially biased methods and those that offer genuine insight into program effectiveness and student success. The correct approach involves a multifaceted assessment that considers both quantitative and qualitative data, focusing on measurable student achievements and long-term career trajectories. This aligns with the implicit regulatory expectation of Adelphi University's entrance exam to identify candidates who are likely to succeed and benefit from its programs. Such an approach is ethically sound, as it aims for objectivity and comprehensiveness, providing a fair basis for evaluating program impact. It also reflects best professional practice in educational assessment, which emphasizes the use of diverse data sources to paint a holistic picture. An approach that relies solely on student self-reported satisfaction is ethically flawed because it is inherently subjective and prone to bias. Students may report satisfaction for reasons unrelated to actual learning or future success, such as social factors or a desire to please. This fails to provide a rigorous, objective measure of program impact, which is crucial for institutional improvement and accountability. An approach that focuses exclusively on faculty opinions, while valuable, can also be limited. Faculty may have their own biases or may not have a complete view of the long-term impact of their teaching on alumni. Relying solely on this perspective neglects the crucial outcomes experienced by the students themselves and the broader societal impact of the university's graduates. This approach lacks the comprehensive data needed for a robust impact assessment. An approach that prioritizes the number of published research papers by faculty over student outcomes is misaligned with the core mission of a university, which includes educating students and preparing them for successful careers. While faculty research is important, it is not the primary indicator of a university's impact on its student body. This approach fails to assess the direct impact on the individuals the university is chartered to serve. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of potential assessment methods against established criteria for validity, reliability, objectivity, and ethical considerations. Professionals should consider the specific goals of the assessment, the stakeholders involved, and the availability of data. A balanced approach, incorporating multiple data points and perspectives, is generally preferred to ensure a comprehensive and fair evaluation of impact. Question 17. Compliance review shows that an international student at Adelphi University is suspected of plagiarism on a major assignment. The student, when questioned, expresses significant distress, stating that their visa status is contingent on maintaining good academic standing and that they were unaware of the specific citation requirements, believing their actions were acceptable. The university's academic integrity policy outlines a clear process for investigating such allegations. How should the university proceed? Option A. Dismiss the plagiarism allegation due to the student's expressed distress and potential visa consequences, focusing instead on providing academic support to improve their citation skills. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation strictly following Adelphi University's academic integrity policy, ensuring the student is informed of the allegations, their rights, and provided a fair opportunity to respond, while keeping the investigation focused solely on the alleged academic misconduct. Option C. Immediately issue a warning to the student and require them to withdraw from the university to avoid jeopardizing their visa status, as academic misconduct is a serious offense. Option D. Advise the student to self-report to immigration authorities due to the potential visa implications, and suspend the university's academic integrity investigation pending the outcome of any immigration proceedings. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal investigation strictly following Adelphi University's academic integrity policy, ensuring the student is informed of the allegations, their rights, and provided a fair opportunity to respond, while keeping the investigation focused solely on the alleged academic misconduct. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to provide a fair and supportive environment for all students, particularly those facing external pressures. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying university policies regarding academic misconduct in a way that is both consistent and compassionate, considering the specific context of international student visa requirements. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to Adelphi University's established academic integrity policies and procedures. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the student with a clear understanding of the allegations and their rights, and allowing them an opportunity to respond. The investigation should focus solely on the alleged academic misconduct, separate from any immigration-related concerns. This approach is ethically sound and legally compliant because it upholds the principles of due process and fairness, ensuring that decisions are based on established rules and evidence, not on assumptions or external pressures. It respects the student's right to a fair hearing and avoids prejudging the outcome. An incorrect approach would be to immediately assume guilt or to allow the student's visa status to dictate the investigation's outcome. For instance, pressuring the student to admit guilt to avoid more severe consequences, or conversely, dismissing the allegations outright due to sympathy for their situation, would both be ethically and procedurally flawed. Such actions bypass the established investigative process, potentially violating the student's rights and undermining the university's commitment to academic standards. Furthermore, making decisions based on immigration status rather than academic integrity constitutes a failure to apply university policy uniformly and fairly, and could lead to legal challenges. Another incorrect approach would be to involve immigration authorities prematurely without completing the university's internal investigation, which could prejudice the student's academic standing and immigration status without due process. Professionals in such situations should employ a structured decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying the core issue, academic misconduct. 2. Consulting and strictly adhering to relevant university policies, e.g., academic integrity policy, student conduct code. 3. Gathering objective evidence. 4. Ensuring all procedural safeguards for the student are met. 5. Maintaining impartiality and avoiding external influences. 6. Documenting all steps and decisions meticulously. 7. Seeking guidance from university legal counsel or designated compliance officers if the situation presents unique complexities, especially when intersecting with external regulations like immigration law, but always prioritizing the university's internal framework for the initial investigation. Question 18. Regulatory review indicates that Adelphi University's admissions committee is tasked with evaluating a prospective student whose academic record, while meeting minimum requirements, is not exceptionally strong. Simultaneously, the university has received information about a significant potential donation from the applicant's family, contingent on the student's admission, which approach best upholds the integrity of the admissions process and Adelphi University's ethical standards. Option A. Conduct a comprehensive and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against all established admissions criteria, ensuring the decision is based solely on academic merit and potential contribution to the university community, independent of any potential financial contributions. Option B. Expedite the review process and subtly advocate for the applicant's admission to the admissions committee, highlighting the potential for a substantial family donation as a positive factor for the university. Option C. Recommend admitting the student based primarily on the anticipated financial benefit to the university, assuming the academic record is sufficient to avoid immediate disqualification. Option D. Inform the applicant's family that their donation would significantly strengthen the student's application, encouraging them to finalize the pledge before the admissions decision is made. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive and objective review of the applicant's qualifications against all established admissions criteria, ensuring the decision is based solely on academic merit and potential contribution to the university community, independent of any potential financial contributions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of academic admissions while balancing competing interests. The pressure to admit a student who may not fully meet the established criteria, especially when influenced by external factors like a potential donation, necessitates a rigorous and objective assessment process. Maintaining the integrity of the admissions process and upholding Adelphi University's commitment to academic excellence are paramount. The correct approach involves a thorough and unbiased evaluation of the applicant's qualifications against the established admissions standards, independent of any potential financial contributions. This aligns with ethical principles of fairness and equity in admissions and adheres to any university policies that mandate objective evaluation criteria. It ensures that all applicants are judged on their merits, thereby safeguarding the academic reputation and integrity of Adelphi University. An incorrect approach that prioritizes the potential donation over the applicant's academic merit would represent a significant ethical failure. This would undermine the fairness of the admissions process and could lead to the admission of underqualified students, potentially lowering academic standards. It also creates a conflict of interest, where financial considerations improperly influence an academic decision. Another incorrect approach, which involves seeking to subtly influence the admissions committee to favor the applicant due to the donation without full disclosure, is also ethically problematic. This circumvents transparency and can be seen as an attempt to manipulate the process. It fails to uphold the principle of open and honest evaluation. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of Adelphi University's admissions policies and ethical guidelines. The professional should then objectively assess the applicant's qualifications against these standards. If there are concerns about the applicant's fit or qualifications, these should be addressed through established review processes. Any potential conflicts of interest, such as the prospect of a donation, must be disclosed and managed according to university policy, ensuring that such factors do not improperly influence admissions decisions. The ultimate decision should be based solely on the applicant's academic and personal suitability for Adelphi University. Question 19. Consider a scenario where an applicant is asked to describe how their chosen course of study at Adelphi University will contribute to the university's strategic objectives as outlined in its most recent institutional plan. Which of the following approaches best demonstrates a deep understanding of this requirement and Adelphi's commitment to its mission? Option A. Detailing how the applicant's specific research interests within their chosen field directly align with Adelphi's stated goals for innovation and community engagement, providing concrete examples of potential projects that could benefit the university and its surrounding community. Option B. Speculating on what Adelphi University's strategic objectives might be based on general trends in higher education, without consulting the university's official documentation. Option C. Expressing a general desire to gain knowledge and skills that will enhance their future career prospects, without referencing specific Adelphi University strategic objectives. Option D. Outlining the applicant's personal academic achievements and extracurricular activities, implying that these accomplishments will inherently benefit the university. Correct answer is A. Detailing how the applicant's specific research interests within their chosen field directly align with Adelphi's stated goals for innovation and community engagement, providing concrete examples of potential projects that could benefit the university and its surrounding community. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of how their proposed academic program aligns with Adelphi University's mission and strategic goals, and how this alignment will be assessed. The challenge lies in articulating a clear, compelling, and evidence-based connection between their individual aspirations and the broader institutional objectives, without resorting to vague generalizations. Careful judgment is required to ensure the response is both personal and institutional, demonstrating foresight and a commitment to contributing to the university community. The correct approach involves a thorough research of Adelphi University's publicly available strategic plans, mission statements, and departmental goals, and then articulating how the applicant's specific program of study directly supports and advances these stated objectives. This demonstrates a proactive and informed engagement with the university's vision, showing that the applicant has done their due diligence and is not simply seeking admission for personal gain, but as a potential contributor to the university's future success. This aligns with the ethical principle of honesty and integrity in academic applications, and the professional expectation of applicants to understand the institutions they wish to join. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on personal career aspirations, without any explicit connection to Adelphi's stated goals, fails to demonstrate an understanding of institutional fit. This is an ethical failure as it misrepresents the applicant's motivation as being solely self-serving, rather than a mutually beneficial relationship. Another incorrect approach that relies on generic statements about wanting to learn and grow, without specific examples, or links to Adelphi's unique offerings or strategic priorities, lacks the depth required for a competitive application. This is a failure of professional diligence, as it suggests a lack of effort in understanding the institution's specific value proposition. A third incorrect approach that attempts to infer Adelphi's goals without direct research, leading to potentially inaccurate assumptions about the university's priorities, is also professionally unsound. This demonstrates a lack of critical thinking and reliance on speculation, which is not a basis for a strong academic application. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a structured approach. First, identify the core requirement of the question, which is to demonstrate alignment. Second, conduct comprehensive research into the institution's stated mission, vision, and strategic objectives. Third, critically analyze how the proposed program of study directly contributes to these institutional goals, providing specific examples. Fourth, articulate this alignment clearly and concisely, ensuring the response is both personal and institutional. Finally, review the response to ensure it is honest, well-supported, and directly addresses the prompt. Question 20. Strategic planning requires Adelphi University to consider the potential differential impact of its entrance examination on various applicant demographics. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with educational equity principles and relevant regulations? Option A. Relying on the historical performance data of the exam, assuming it has been a fair measure of academic potential for all students in the past. Option B. Conducting a thorough impact assessment to identify and address any potential biases in the exam's content, format, and scoring that might disproportionately affect certain applicant groups. Option C. Implementing the most cost-effective and administratively simple examination available to streamline the admissions process. Option D. Prioritizing the exam's ability to predict success in rigorous academic programs, without specific analysis of its effects on diverse applicant pools. The correct answer is B. Conducting a thorough impact assessment to identify and address any potential biases in the exam's content, format, and scoring that might disproportionately affect certain applicant groups. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because Adelphi University, as an educational institution, must navigate the complex landscape of admissions policies while adhering to federal and state regulations concerning equal opportunity and non-discrimination. The university's strategic planning for its entrance exam must proactively identify and mitigate potential biases that could inadvertently disadvantage certain applicant groups, thereby risking legal challenges and reputational damage. Careful judgment is required to balance the desire for academic rigor with the imperative of fairness and inclusivity. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment of the entrance exam on diverse applicant populations. This means systematically evaluating how the exam's content, format, and scoring mechanisms might disproportionately affect students from various socioeconomic backgrounds, racial or ethnic groups, or those with different educational preparation. This proactive evaluation allows for the identification of potential disparities and the implementation of corrective measures, such as revising question types, providing alternative assessment methods, or offering preparatory resources. This aligns with the spirit of federal regulations like Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin in programs receiving federal financial assistance, and New York State's human rights law, which offers broad protections against discrimination. By conducting an impact assessment, Adelphi demonstrates a commitment to equitable access and a fair evaluation process, which are ethical imperatives for educational institutions. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the perceived academic rigor of the exam, without considering its differential impact. This could lead to the perpetuation of existing educational inequalities, as students from undersourced schools may be less familiar with the specific question formats or content tested, even if they possess the underlying knowledge. Such an approach risks violating anti-discrimination laws by creating a de facto barrier for certain groups. Another incorrect approach is to assume that a standardized exam is inherently objective and therefore requires no further scrutiny. This overlooks the reality that standardized tests can reflect societal biases and may not accurately measure the potential of all students. Relying on such assumptions without evidence of fairness can lead to discriminatory outcomes and legal repercussions. Finally, an approach that prioritizes ease of administration or cost-effectiveness over fairness and equity would be ethically unsound and potentially illegal. Admissions processes must be designed to be as equitable as possible, even if it requires additional resources or effort. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stakeholder approach. This includes consulting with admissions officers, faculty, legal counsel specializing in education law, and potentially external experts in educational assessment and diversity. A framework for decision-making should prioritize fairness, equity, and compliance with all applicable regulations. This involves 1. Identifying potential risks and biases in the current or proposed admissions processes. 2. Gathering data to assess the actual impact of these processes on different applicant groups. 3. Developing and evaluating alternative strategies to mitigate identified biases. 4. Implementing chosen strategies and continuously monitoring their effectiveness. 5. Ensuring transparency and accountability throughout the process.